These are the top 10 films of 1954. When I say top 10, I mean my personal favourite films of 1954. Cheers. In at number 10, Dial M for Murder. Alfred Hitchcock's 3D thriller. The 3D here seems to mostly revolve around just putting a lamp or a bottle in the foreground. Like many Alfred Hitchcock films, this revolves around a man wanting to murder his wife. In this case, a rather upper middle class gentleman who gets an old school friend to do it for him and talks about it in a rather blasé fashion.
I even thought of killing her. That seemed a far more sensible idea.
Now, murdering a woman is as easy as tying your shoelaces. You just wrap your hands round her throat and squeeze. Yes, I guess when you put it that way, it is rather easy, isn't it? It certainly is. Now, do you want anything to help? A tie or her tights, perhaps? Yes, maybe her tights. That could work rather well. How much would you want to be paid for this sort of thing? I don't know. Just get me a drink next time we see each other. Very well, old man. Speaking of drink, would you like another glass of this rather indifferently blended scotch? I would rather, thank you. The highlight of this movie is the incredibly well executed attempted murder sequence. It's real edge of your seat excitement stuff, and Hitchcock at his best. In at number 9, Godzilla. While kaiju films, big monsters destroying cities, usually hold very little extra meaning, this original Godzilla is full of metaphors. Godzilla represents the terror of the nuclear bomb, with a country not knowing how to cope with something so destructive and so horrifying. While at times the man in the big lizard suit dates it a little, there are still some sequences that are genuinely quite frightening, especially the first time you see Godzilla. In at number 8, Salt of the Earth. This politically charged drama, made by mostly blacklisted Hollywood filmmakers, has a lot to say. Telling the story of a bunch of miners and their wives striking against a cruel mining company, this neo-realist film features only 5 professional actors, the rest being actual miners, not like miners, like you know, digging in a coal mine, going ground down ground. This film is pro-immigration, pro-women, and fights the corner for workers' rights. In 1954, it was seen as communist propaganda, and due to protest, was only shown in 12 theatres across the country. This is a truly important piece of work, and is a great example of a very, very difficult time in Hollywood. In at number 7, La Strada. Fellini's depressing film about a female clown is an astonishing picture. Fellini's actual wife plays this naive girl who's bought from her family by Anthony Quinn's travelling strongman, who's abusive to her and mean and drinks too much. And they travel through these sort of depressed Italian cities as he puts on his show of breaking trains, and she sort of improves as his comedy clown sidekick. The film is very depressing, especially the ending, but this is a real human tale, perfectly made. In at number 6, The Crucified Lovers, another comic masterpiece here, telling the story of 2 lovers on the run in feudal Japan. Every character in this Mizoguchi film is well realised, and you understand their reasons for what they're doing, even when it's reprehensible and immoral. Set in a time when adultery was punishable by crucifixion, this incredibly tense film dares to say that it is not necessarily such a horrid offence, especially in a time when arranged marriages were a thing. This is a real beautiful picture, touching and tragic and well worth your watch. In at number 5, A Star is Born. This first remake of the 1937 original, which has since been remade twice more, in the 70s with Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand, and just this year with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. This second version stars Judy Garland as the star on her way up, and James Mason as the star on his way down. Now, James Mason is one of my favourite actors. I absolutely love the man, and here he's allowed to run wild as the alcoholic actor, and it's an absolutely knockout performance. Especially when he's sort of doing things like, "Are you trying to stop me? Are you trying to stop me?"
Are you trying to stop me? Are you trying to stop me going on? Is that it?
There's a wonderful thing with James Mason in this movie, where he completely flips every now and again. He'll be perfectly charming and then rather aggressive, won't he?
With me. Come on.
And it's going to take quite a lot for Bradley Cooper, in my mind, to ever take over this performance. If James Mason was still alive, I'd happily watch him sing and kiss Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga, you're an awfully good singer, aren't you? In at number 4, On the Waterfront. Marlon Brando is fantastic as the dim former boxer who now works on the docks for union bosses / the mob. He helps the mob bosses and the union murder this dock worker who is gonna snitch on him. But when the victim's sister comes up to him and she's saying, you know, maybe this isn't the right way, what happened or whatever, he starts to change his mind. And part of that has to do with the fact that he could have been a very good boxer, he could have been a contender. But they made him throw a fight, which leads to one of the greatest film scenes in film history.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead of a bum.
Shot in location in Hoboken. It's a really beautiful film and really very good. Especially watching Marlon Brando play with pigeons.
Oh, look what he went and did.
In at number 3, Sancho the Bailiff, Mizoguchi's second film on this list. And it's really brutal, even for Mizoguchi standards. Telling the story of 2 noble children who were kidnapped and sold into slavery. This film has no issues showing just how immoral and evil it is to own other people, and the horrors that have and still are befalling these people. In this film, we have people whose calves are cut so they can't run away. We have people who are branded on their forehead. There are 2 drownings. I mean, this does not shy away from any of that stuff, and it's really shocking, even to today's standards, and this is back in 1954. And it shows just how much Mizoguchi wanted to tell these people's stories, and to show just how awful this is, and to really make a point, and make sure you don't leave with any thought that, oh no, it's not that bad. He rams the message home. In at number 2, Rear Window. This is movie making at its finest. A very simple premise of a man in a wheelchair watching /perving on people in their apartments across from him, which leads to him believing a murder has been committed. Again, a man has murdered his wife. This is perfect territory for Hitchcock to use all his tricks and invent some new ones. James Stewart is perfect casting as the nosy neighbour. If it had been anyone else, it just would have come across as a pervert. Because he's so charming and likeable, you don't believe that he's just doing this for dirty little kicks. The girl down in apartment number 2, she's got a real big bush. And in apartment number 5 over there, well, James and his wife, well, she gives him a blowjob most evenings. He never goes down on her, which I'd say is selfish. There's her boy up there, he plays with himself almost constantly. I try to avoid that window as best I can. And over there's a couple, day and night, they're at it, and the things oh, here they go. I didn't know you. Oh God, it's everywhere. And in at number 1, Seven Samurai. One of the most influential films of all time, this Kurosawa epic tells the story of 7 samurai who come together to protect a village of farmers from some bandits. Having influenced countless films and remakes, etc., this film still stands tall above the rest. It uses its 3.5-hour running time to tell the stories of the villagers and each samurai, so that by the time a the 40-minute attack on the town takes place, you really care about all of them, and losing just one means something. The film is gorgeous and shot brilliantly, and the editing is both breathtaking and groundbreaking. This is one of those true, absolute game changers. A fantastic movie. So, counting down the top 10. In at number 10, Dial M for Murder. In at number 9, Godzilla. In at number 8, Salt of the Earth. In at number 7, The Strada. In at number 6, The Crucified Lovers. In at number 5, A Star is Born. In at number 4, On the Waterfront. In at number 3, Sancho the Bailiff. In at number 2, Rear Window. And in at number 1, Seven Samurai. Well, that was my top 10 of 1954. What have I missed out? Quite a lot, probably. And what are your favourite films of 1954? Cheers.